What is going on, y'all? This is your boy Saint Irving. Today we're going over Tier Harribel and everything that we missed in the trailer. She left a lot to be desired in certain senses. I'm going to be breaking down everything that the trailer missed so that way you know what's good. When we look at her bio, it says she is the third espada. Her zanpacto tiburon, and her command to return to the world is, they say kaiju, but it should be hunt. Among the many eccentrics among the espada, she aspires to create a world without sacrifice. She can control water, and a single slash can cut an enemy in half. This is very apparent because she is the symbolism of sacrifice. And so she's always going on about the sacrifices of the world and what is needed, saying that no world is created without sacrifices. A super aggressive character who can close the distance with her high-performing unique skills and keep pressing his attacks. Her unique skills have very high charging performance and doesn't allow her opponents to get any distance. She has a aura gauge that strengthens herself by continuously landing attacks and is very powerful while fighting at her own pace. However, since her normal attack power is low, she also runs the risk of being overtaken even if she wins in terms of the number of attacks. In order to keep the aura gauge high, it is important to keep attacking without being on the defensive. Essentially, she is a very aggressive playstyle. She's not very keen to using defense tactics, so you're going to want to make sure you're constantly keeping up the pressure as you're using tier. The more attacks with consecutive attacks, the stronger she becomes. The third espada aims for a world without casualties. Her ease of use is a 4-star character, and she is, as we thought, a all-arounder. She is a rush-down, all-arounder, aggressive playstyle. And this is awesome because all the other all-arounders that we have is Toshiro, who's more of a keep-away zoning type. Then we have Rukia and Urahara, who are more in the mid-range stance. They kind of can do a little bit of everything, but you know, they're more so a complete all-arounder with differences. But she is the aggressive, in-your-face, rush-down playstyle. So they've made sure that they have a bunch of all-arounders, but different kinds of them. When we look at her attack stats, it shows that it is a 3. Her speed is a 5. Her range is a 2, durability is a 3, and techniques are a 3. And when we look at her signature move, it's called drifting, a technique that charges towards the opponent. It has a longer distance than a step, making it easier to close the distance. This technique itself does not have any offensive ability, but additional input during the charge can be used to branch out into a corresponding technique. What this essentially means is that it's not a flash step, just in case, because I think that may be thought of in some terms. It's not a flash step, but it's basically a larger step. So the way I interpret this is kind of almost like a sonito. It's in between a flash step, sonito, and a regular step to get inside. And so what this is going to do is allow you to kind of close in the distance a lot faster, and then also you can put in other combos along with it, whether that be quick attack and possibly even heavy, maybe even some spiritual pressure techniques. So you're going to want to learn what the distance is, how far you can go, and then also kind of tech that out with some attacks, etc. So this is a good use that you can mix people up, whether it be with using a flash step in coordination with this, or maybe just even some other techniques. With your spiritual pressure technique 1, Wave Blue Cannon is a long distance attack that charges a blade with your spiritual pressure and fires it. The damage is small, but it is effective for charging the aura gauge and for using a long distance deterrent. This is very evident when you look at the fact that it's very, very fast, and basically it's a just straightforward shot. It surprised Toshiro when he actually witnessed it, and it can be used to just kind of push them off. And I'll explain more why this is actually a really, really good benefit. When you see her second spiritual pressure technique, Let Me Show You, is a 3-hit combo technique that follows up with a large upward/forward. If it hits, it will greatly increase the aura gauge, but if it is blocked, it will leave you vulnerable, so you need to be careful when using it. It has a long startup, and it's also very obvious. Of course, aside from the fact that you can hear when the spiritual pressure technique comes, you'll also be able to see that she will raise her blade and then do the technique. So I feel like this will be best when she's already in a combo and then finishing it off with this spiritual pressure technique too. It seems very obvious that you're going to have this as a larger spiritual pressure technique. And then when we go into her aura gauge, we'll see why this is actually really beneficial and why you can do this very often. So with her awakening, the sword release Empress Shark. By unlocking the sword and releasing the Emperor Shark Queen, the performance is enhanced. The increased attack power makes it easier to push through opponents. In addition, the weapon changes from a dagger to a great sword, increasing the range, expanding the options at mid-range. This is one of the most important parts here that I think we need to understand. What it's essentially saying is that, one, her attack is going to boost, so it's going to go likely from a 3 to a 4. The most important part here is that her range technically is not changing, right? She's at a 2. But what's happening here is that instead of most of her attacks being at a close range distance, she's going to open herself up to more mid-range attacks. So it's very possible she'll be able to do some water techniques. It's just not necessarily shown here. That is my interpretation of what it's saying, because it's expanding the options at mid-range. So her quick attacks might change, her heavy attacks might change, her special flash attack is likely going to change. So with these things in mind, we're going to see that some of her techniques are going to have an increased range. It's not necessarily so that, you know, it's going to change every moveset likely. Like, for example, I don't see that her spiritual pressure techniques are changing. She can still do both of these in her awakening, but it's likely that her combos are going to change and she's going to have a larger range, giving her more variety and being able to be more aggressive at a distance. With her aura gauge, it accumulates when you hit an attack. When the gauge is filled to 50% or more, your attack power increases and the performance of various techniques are strengthened. The gauge decreases over time. Also, the more spiritual power you have accumulated, the faster it decreases. So, this is a part that we did not get in the trailer, and something that's very, very important. So, we already know that when you are landing an attack, it will fill your aura gauge. If you get to 50%, your attack power increases. So, in essence, if it gets to 50% and you're not awakened, it's like your attack power already goes to 4, right? But then if you awaken, you're now at 4, and with your aura gauge being at 50% or higher, it's almost like you're at 5. So it really makes it to where she is insanely powerful. You just have to kind of be on the relentless attacks. So when we think about this though, the very bottom part is the most important part. The more spiritual power you have accumulated, the faster it decreases. So this is similar to Yamamoto, where as you're doing your techniques, you have to be cautious of your aura being a little bit too much. She's farming a little bit too much aura, guys, and you need to make sure that you cool off a little bit, release a little bit of that aura, so that way it's not decreasing as fast. So as you gain your spiritual power, you're going to want to be releasing it pretty much as fast as you can, because the more spiritual power you have, the less aura you're going to be having, because it's going to be decreasing it. So basically, the idea here is you want to land a few quick attacks, heavy attacks, etc. You got spiritual power, okay, boom, release it. You're not going to want to try to max it out. I don't think you should be doing that in a regular match anyways, but with her, it's a disadvantage to have too much spiritual power. So going back to her spiritual pressure technique 1, this allows you to pop off your blue wave cannon pretty much at any time, because it's a benefit. So while you can keep your aura high, your aura is not going to decrease by having techniques unleashed, but it will decrease if you're not unleashing those techniques. So you're getting weaker the more spiritual power you have, in a sense where, I guess more so, I guess the correct term would be, you're not as powerful if you have spiritual pressure at full or at a high level. So you need to make sure you're managing those meters and making sure that you can effectively balance those out to keep yourself in top form. Overall, Harribel is a very basic character. She's got a little bit of tech to her when it comes to the techniques that she can use and the playstyle that you'll be doing. You will have to be very aggressive. There doesn't leave much room for defensive tactics. Now granted, if someone's really pressuring you, you can kind of pop them off by using your wave blue cannon, but at the same time, this is basically incentivizing you to always be on the attack. Thankfully, it's not like Toshiro where you're decreasing your aura if you're getting hit, but at the same time, if you're not landing attacks for a certain period of time and you're on the defensive, your aura is going to decrease already. So she's literally aura farming. She's got a little bit too much aura, and when she does, she's got too much spiritual power, her aura is, not so much there, so she's got to be releasing that consistently. And I think that's a pretty cool technique. Basically, her lore doesn't really explain the way she's made, but that's okay. It's not always going to have to be the case. In this situation, she is powerful. Just off rip, she's always been one of the most powerful Espada. Even before she became an Espada, she was a Basalore before Aizen even found her. She's always been a very powerful character, and really, she's one of the only ones that actually cares for her Fracción. She cared about her Three Bestia. She also helped rule Huecamundo later on with Neliel. And so it's one of those things that she's actually not too much of a villain. She is absolutely willing to cross you if you cross her, namely when Yamamoto defeated her Fracción or when Aizen betrayed her. She was ready for the smoke. She wanted all the smoke, and she was never afraid to attack. She was always okay with calling people out when it comes to Baragan or Noritora, not necessarily listening to Aizen. So she's definitely been someone who's always been about that life. She don't care who it is. She is an actual shark in the water. When she smells blood, she's coming for you. You're going to want to make sure with her, you're basically just staying on the aggressive. Her signature move is going to really help with that. And you're going to have to lab and figure out what is a good way to use your signature move in tandem with your other techniques. But I think the most important part really is just that her awakening does seem to change some of her abilities. Now, a lot of us were pretty disappointed that we didn't get some water techniques, but I'm thinking that her awakening is where she gets those water techniques. Now, if not, a big L on their part, not gonna lie. Additionally, I know a few of us are kind of a little bit confused about the censoring on this one, because all the other characters didn't get a censor. They got anime accurate, manga accurate, representation, but with Tyr, they definitely censored her, which I don't really understand. Gooners aside, genuinely, I am a little confused because it's a little bit inconsistent. With Yoruichi, they didn't do it. With Neliel, they didn't do it. But then with Tyr, they said nah. Especially with the rating saying that there was going to be some underboob. I'm a little bit confused. I know we got it for Neliel, but I'm just saying, from an analytical standpoint, it's a little bit odd. That being said, she's pretty gas. I know a lot of people are going to love her. She's beautiful. She looks really cool. I think they did her really, really well. And as long as they put some water techniques in her awakening, I think she's going to be an awesome character. If she had projectiles and was a rushdown style, I think it'd be a little bit too much. So I think they did it justice. Basically, this hard counters Toshiro. Not everybody will agree, but if you look at it, Toshiro is a keep away character. She's a rushdown character. She wants to be all up in your face, and he wants to be far away from you. So their playstyles are literally like combating each other. She wants to be all up in his face, and he wants to be backed away. He has some range. She doesn't have as much attack power. And he doesn't have as much speed as her. So they're gonna constantly going at it, and he's gonna be keeping her away with his signature move, the icicle piercing. He can make sure that she does drifting. Well, he can unleash the icicle piercing and at different ranges depending on when he unleashes it. So she's gonna have to be careful. And then additionally with him, he's gonna have to be careful because when she does drifting, she can throw a combo into that. So he may not be able to gauge properly what she's gonna be doing. So I hope you can kind of see how this is gonna be a very crazy, awesome play style when you're considering, who you're fighting against. Now, obviously, it may not be as beneficial with some other characters. And of course, with balancing, you have a 50-50 chance, as they mentioned very early on in the articles. But specifically with, you know, this is pretty much her rival in the Arrancar arc, in a sense, it's going to be very interesting to see the fact that Tyr can directly counter him in certain senses. I mean, between all of her techniques, it really is pretty nice. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. This has been your boy Saint Irving, and hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Not too much to break down, thankfully, but at the same time, she's interesting enough that I think, you know, she deserves some respect. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I will catch you on the next one. Peace.